right, welcome in on this Monday, March 23rd. We are live. It is 4 p.m. Eastern time. Thank you guys so much for joining us on the show. We've got a very busy show because, well, President Trump, the Trump administration says that, yes, we had very productive discussions with the Iranian government, and looks like we're going to be moving into a ceasefire. 5 days or so, which is, of course, perfect timing for the U.S. Marines to arrive and land. So is all of this a big obfuscation because Iran says, nope, we didn't talk at all. So we're going to get to the bottom of that.
We're going to talk about whether or not this is affecting the markets. Is Trump actually looking towards just that? I mean, FBI Director Kash Patel just pointing to, market signs like we're doing great, we're doing fine. Meanwhile, many federal employees are still not being paid because of the partial shutdown. So is this what fine looks like? Do you feel fine? We're going to talk about that in a second. We have a great guest today.
Yeah, Brandon Weichert's going to be joining us here in a moment. He's been doing some incredible work. You should really follow him on X. Really fantastic work. So we're going to talk with Brandon here in just a moment about all of that, plus possible boots on the ground with these U.S. Marines being deployed. Which location will they land? We were told no boots on the ground, U.S. military boots on the ground. This is going to be a disaster. So we'll unpack all of that. But first,
we want to tell you about our friends at American Financing, because have you looked at your credit card statement? If you're looking at, working 40 to 50 hours a week, but you still can't make ends meet, you're putting things on high interest credit cards, well, then think about that. You're paying 20% more at least for everything that you just need to keep afloat. American Financing is doing something that banks hate. They're helping people get out of debt. They have mortgage rates in the 5s, and they're showing homeowners how to take their hard-earned equity in their home to wipe out high-interest debt. This is a savings of $800 or more per month. Talk to a salary-based mortgage consultant. They have no upfront fees, no obligations. Just see how much you can save. And if you start today, you can delay 2 mortgage payments. So give American Financing a call. They're America's home for home loans. You can call them at 866-890-8434. That's 866-890-8434, or go to americanfinancing.net/redacted.
And we want to tell you about Maria Morera. She was born in 1907, and when horses still shared the streets with cars, she lived through 2 world wars, the Spanish Civil War, the rise of the internet. And when she passed away in August of 2024 at 117 years old, she was the world's oldest person. And after her death, researchers examined something remarkable. Her gut microbiome was remarkably diverse in beneficial bacteria. When scientists studied other similar people, they found similar patterns of the same age. Greater microbial diversity, stronger gut bacteria, traits linked to immune health, heart health, even brain health. That's why Maria's story matters so much. Longevity isn't just one miracle solution. It's about daily habits that nourish your internal environment. That's why Brightcore created Kimchi 1, because consuming kimchi is the strongest and simplest way to help replenish beneficial bacteria and maintain microbial balance. I take it every day. I take 2 capsules every day. Some people love the taste of kimchi, like Philip on our team, but other people hate it. And that's why if you take the capsule, you don't have to deal with any of the smell or taste of fermented kimchi. Of course, South Koreans love it, but Americans might not. It's not really part of our diet. So try it right now. You go to mybrightcore.com/redact to get 25% off your entire order. Or an even better deal, call our friends at Brightcore for up to 50% off your order and free shipping. Give them a call now. 888-404-6312. Telling you, it's part of our daily routine. All right, thank you guys so much for subscribing and being a part of our show. We really, really appreciate it. So where are things right now with this war in Iran? Well, if you listen to President Trump early this morning before the markets opened, that's a key point in this entire story, he posted this on social media. I'm pleased to report that the United States of America and the country of Iran have had over the last 2 days very good and productive conversations regarding a complete and total resolution of our hostilities in the Middle East. Okay. So that was before the markets opened, and then things really seemed to settle down in the oil markets and in the stock market, and then in the gold markets, gold rebounding as well, silver coming back, even Bitcoin coming back. Then Iran's foreign ministry spokesperson says they had no talks with the United States. Iranian people demand complete and remorseful punishment of the aggressors, he posted. All Iranian officials stand firmly behind their supreme leader and people until this goal is achieved. No negotiations have been held with the United States, and fake news is used to manipulate the financial and oil markets and escape the quagmire in which the U.S. and Israel are trapped. So Brandon Weichert is the host of the NatSec Talk on Rumble and a senior national security editor at 1945.com. He's been doing some incredible work, and we wanted to invite Brandon on to kind of walk through all of the latest details in this war. Brandon, great to have you here on the show.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
So about this quagmire that the Iranian people can see so clearly, but it seems the president cannot. Can you just sort of explain where we are right now and the likelihood of any kind of peace talks?
Well, we're stuck. That's where we are.
That's the quagmire.
That's the quagmire, and the only options we have are to drop this thing like a hot potato, or if I can mix metaphors, decide to spastically climb the escalation ladder. And it sounds like, contrary to whatever the president is tweeting or truth socialing about, he's timing it, as you note, for the markets. This is not a real, I think, diplomatic initiative. I think he's talking to himself most of the time. But whatever's going on with that, it is very obvious the troop movements are clear. I've been monitoring a very significant buildup in the region, the Middle East, the CENTCOM area of responsibility, for the last week. It's getting bigger and bigger, and I believe the president has decided to attempt to escalate this thing by landing Marines in one of three locations. We've all been hearing about Karg Island, which is sort of deep inside the Strait of Hormuz. It's or rather the Persian Gulf. It's beyond the Strait of Hormuz. It's very close to Iranian, missiles and whatnot. And that would be a very, very, very bad idea to send 2,500 or 5,000 Marines. It'd be like Gallipoli in World War I. There's Qasem Island, which is much closer to the actual bend of the Strait of Hormuz. Again, it's in the kill box for the Iranians. And then the other one that I'm hearing not many people talk about is Konarak, and that's their naval facility that's in the Gulf of Oman, which means it's closer to where our warships are operating. And basically, technically, it would be a little bit, quote unquote, easier for our troops to be able to get over to and to have some kind of backing from the Navy, because the Navy won't go near the Strait of Hormuz right now. So much winning. But ultimately, this will lead, whether it's one of those three spots, this will end in the same way. It will be Gallipoli for the Americans, which means it will be a complete rout of the U.S. military. And that's not because our Marines are bad at their jobs, far from it, but it's because they're not going to be fighting conventional forces. They're going to be waiting ashore against an enemy that they're not going to see, because the enemy has studied Russian and Ukrainian military doctrine from the Ukraine war and determined that you fight conventional forces with tens of thousands of drones and with missile overmatch. And that's exactly what the Iranians have today. They have over 88,000 Shahed drones. In fact, I was told they actually don't know how many they have because they've dispersed them so well, and they keep building more of them every day. So they're going to be throwing those swarms of drones at the 2,500 or 5,000 Marines that are deployed by Trump. So this thing's going to end in disaster.
But what would they be trying to do? They would be trying to take over control of a naval base. And then what, though? Because having even one is what's the lily pad from there? Yeah.
Well, again, this is a thoughtless exercise. I'm very surprised that it's gotten this far, and that there hasn't been mass resignations from the top military brass. But here we are. The theory is that the Marines would be used to create a foothold in one of those three likely locations, and from there they could essentially interdict the sea lane and could basically punch through with land. They could establish land-based missiles and whatnot that could counteract, in theory, whatever the Iranians were using to close the Strait of Hormuz down. This is ultimately about trying to reassure the markets and open up the Strait of Hormuz. But again, they're not going to get that far. They're going to try to land these guys. They're going to get slaughtered. It's going to be a complete rout. It'll be a humiliation of U.S. military power beyond what we've already seen here. And it's going to lead to I think the Israelis stepping in and launching a nuke at at Iran. I think we're quickly on that glide slope to nuclear weapons being used.
Oh my gosh! I mean, you think about every time the United States is sort of positioning itself here. We're having talks. We're going to be meeting diplomatically. There seems to be an end around from the Israelis. Some sort of attack, some sort of an energy infrastructure attack, something that's sort of sideswiping what the United States is doing here. And President Trump kind of acknowledged that today. He was asked about these diplomatic talks. He said, well, we were talking, and it's kind of a third level person. I don't want to give you his name. And I want to play this soundbite because it's very telling. What he's saying what he's saying here is, I'm not going to give you his name. I don't want him to be killed. Killed by whom? The Israelis. Listen.
Who is Steve Witkoff speaking with, Mr. President?
A top person. Don't forget, we've wiped out the leadership phase 1, phase 2, and largely phase 3. But we're dealing with the man who I believe is the most respected and the leader. It's a little tough. We've wiped out everybody.
Is that the Supreme Leader?
No, not the Supreme Leader. We don't. Well, nobody heard of the second Supreme Leader, the Son.
Are these direct?
We have not heard from the Son. Every once in a while you'll see a statement made, but we haven't. We don't know if he's living. But the people that seem to be running it, and they seem that based on really fact, because things they've said have taken place.
Mr. President,
Again,
Mr. President, I know you've deployed.
because I don't want him to be killed. Okay, I don't want him to be killed.
Mr. President, you've deployed.
Nobody wants to be that. Nobody wants that job right now. Nobody's exactly looking forward to being the head of that particular country. But perhaps we'll be able to solve that problem.
Mr. President,
So, again, I mean, they're really not wanting to say this out loud because the Israelis could possibly target. They certainly don't want a ceasefire. Is that how you see it on the Israeli side?
No, the Netanyahu government is deeply committed to war, a regime change war, a sort of a final war, if you will, against the Islamic Republic of Iran. And to be fair, look, if I were an Israeli, I wouldn't be comfortable with that regime being in the same neighborhood as me. But ultimately, the reasons behind why this war initiated had nothing to do with national security, either for the Israelis, certainly not for us. It was simply because Netanyahu politically needed a release. He needed to divert attention from very, very serious questions that were being asked of him by his own government and by his own people about the failures of 10-7, the so-called failures, what have you, of 10-7, and also the ongoing corruption issues that he's been dealing with legally for the last several years. Every time, in fact, it's sort of like the Lewinsky scandal in the 90s. Every time there was a new investigation or a new move made in the investigations into he and his family, suddenly Netanyahu would open up another front of the war and then everybody's distracted. So this is sort of a wag the dog moment with him. But ultimately, we are reaching a point, I believe, where Netanyahu and his political party politically cannot extricate themselves. Already Israel's getting slammed. They've opened another front in the war, with Lebanon now going after Hezbollah. Hezbollah is holding their own. They've destroyed many Merkava tanks. They're calling it the Merkava massacre. Tel Aviv is flattened. Jerusalem's been hit. The port of Haifa's been hit, which is a key economic hub. So ultimately, the Israelis are in a use it or lose it position. They cannot afford politically to let Trump get a deal. And ultimately, let's face it, this is not Trump's war. He was dragged into it by his so-called partner, Mr. Netanyahu.
Now, one of the things I've seen you do so beautifully is assess what are the resources to fight. Now, last week on Tucker Carlson, Joe Kent said Israel could hold their own possibly for a bit. I would love to see that experiment. If the United States decides we don't want this anymore, we're not doing this, you've advocated for that so many times. What would happen to Israel? Could they keep this going?
If we pulled back, I think there's enough of a bit of rationality left in the Israeli system where they would be for. If we really were like, okay, we're done, and not only are we pulling out and we're pulling back, but we're cutting off aid to Israel. If you go after the aid to Israel, Israel cannot continue doing what it. And I'm not saying we should leave them totally defenseless. What I'm saying is, this is what Joe Kent was saying. I interviewed him yesterday for my show, and what Joe Kent was saying is, look, we need to just ratchet back. dial back what we're giving them and focus specifically on near-term defensive systems to give them, that would force, Joe thinks that would force a recalibration on their part politically, and that might force them to kind of hew closer to what we want to do. But ultimately, the way I used to work on the Hill, the way our political system is bought and paid for by Israeli interests, it's not going to happen. And so here we are where the proxy, Israel, is leading us by the nose. We're pouring whatever we have into Israel in terms of resources, and they're using it, belligerently across the region. So even if Trump, I think, were to try to get an off-ramp, I don't think he can get one because, first of all, the Israelis aren't going to go with him. They're going to try to escalate. But second of all, I don't think the Iranians right now want an off-ramp. The president of Iran said, he's President Pezeshkian, he said that we have to now bloody the Americans to such a degree that they never again try what they just did to us again. So ultimately, the Iranians are not interested in an off-ramp until they, quote, bloody us, which they're doing pretty well right now. I hate to say it, but we are not looking so hot right now in the region because we're not achieving our strategic ends. And I'd be happy to go into, that aspect if you want.
Yeah, I would love to hear that piece of it. And I think I just want to kind of play off of what you just said, because I think the reports are from Iranian sources that one of the major mistakes that they made was, the 86-year-old Ayatollah agreeing to a ceasefire after the 12 days war, going along with that, allowing, the United States and Israel to sort of lick their wounds and kind of go back. And that was a huge mistake seen internally, that they should have never stopped firing on Israel and making attacks. And so for them to just agree to some sort of a ceasefire, what do they get out of it? They really don't get anything out of it. Their list of demands is pretty long. Get rid of American bases in the Middle East, close all American bases, massive reparations for what damage you've done to the country of Israel. I mean, the list is Iran, 6 or 7.
They don't want reparations for Israel.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, for Iran. Yeah. They want to be paid back for the massive damage inside of their country.
And they also want the money back that we've been holding for 30, 40 years. They want, they want complete restitution. So, I mean, that should tell you right now that there is no stasis in the conversation here, because we're not going to do that, and we can't do that, and they're not going to get that. So we'll continue up the escalation ladder, and this actually does get us into sort of the strategic differences here. The United States entered this war very haphazardly, with the Israelis leading us by the nose. And, Clausewitz says that war is an extension of politics through other means. You have to look at understanding that war is a political objective. There's ultimately an end point, and it is inherently political. If they want something politically, that's why you go to war. Our strategy, our objectives have been sort of all over the place. We want to, get rid of the regime. That was a big thing, regime change. Then we said denuclearization. Then we're saying we also want to get rid of those ballistic missiles. And then, we're gonna try to get rid of the Navy and the Air Force of Iran, and we're going to try to get them to permanently stop supporting the terrorist groups Hezbollah and Hamas. Well, okay, that's all great, but ultimately you've assembled a very limited force in the region that's not going to be able to affect those many changes in what Trump initially thought was a 72-hour to 96-hour war. This is not going to happen. Meanwhile, the Iranians, their strategic objective is very simple. It's survival. That's all they have to do. They win by just staying alive. That's it. And, it's a country of 96 million people. They have a lot of depth in terms of personnel, and the Iranians knew this kind of attack was coming, and they have, much to their credit, prepared their regime very well for this kind of scenario. And you're seeing them now counterattack because of that good preparation, that very professional preparation that they've undergone over the last 40 years preparing for this. It's survival for them. And ultimately, they've tethered that to a very smart and savvy analysis that says the Americans, and the Israelis as well, because of depleting stockpiles of 14 key weapon systems, many of them are our interceptors that defend U.S. bases in the region, defend the Arab states, defend Israel. Those stockpiles have been depleted since the Ukraine war began. Now we're in a real crisis here. And then also, so we're running out of those. And then also the Iranians understand if they squeeze the economic side hard enough and they go after the Arab states long enough, the will to fight from the American side will evaporate. And then there's also the political implications as the economy goes bad. Trump and the Republicans facing a midterm will have to change their calculus. So for the Iranians, time and space are their allies, and we've given that to them. And that is why I say we are strategically being defeated, and it's not likely to change anytime soon.
I want to talk more about the boots on the ground piece of this. I don't want to gloss past what you said earlier. I want to talk about the nuclear piece of this and the de-escalation ladder. And does Trump, is he running out of time for de-escalation? I want to talk about all of that. We're just going to take a quick break, grab some water, and tell you about our friends over at Upward, and then we'll be right back with Brandon.
Hey, if you are looking to date and you don't want to just kind of scroll left, scroll right, you want a serious commitment, someone who will ask you what you had for dinner, someone who will be a real part of your life, who has commitment on the brain, well, then you need to download Upward today, because most dating apps are just there like, you know, quick dopamine hit, normal social media, but they don't lead to lasting connections. Well, Upward was meant to connect people who have faith-based lives, who really want to think about commitment long-term and family. And in fact, we talk a lot about how on this show, systems aren't really designed to serve people. Modern dating feels like that too. That's why I appreciate so much what Upward is doing. It's a dating app centered around faith and shared values. So you're not, you know, meeting someone and then negotiating based on your beliefs later. You start aligned. So download Upward today. It's available on the App Store and on Google Play. If you're ready to date with intention instead of confusion, download the Upward app. Start from that place of shared values today.
I want to tell you about Van Man. I'm a huge fan of this, guys. I use this every day after I get out of the shower, after I shave. And in fact, we did a little trip this weekend. We were in Scottsdale, and it was like 108 degrees, and the kids were at the pool for a little while at the hotel we were at this weekend. And my daughter got a little burn, you know, and here's where beef tallow and Van Man comes in. An American company, grass-fed beef tallow moisturizers, and I'm telling you, it's unbelievable. Her burn went away. It's crazy how
the next day.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
So I use it all the time. I love it. If you think like, hey, Dr. Squatch is some small, wholesome company, Burt's Bees, Native, think again. They've all been bought by mega corporations and private equity firms who hijack these beloved brands. That's why Van Man is doing something entirely different. A few years back, their grass-fed beef tallow moisturizers, they've been crushing it ever since when they created these things. My neighbors in our neighborhood were asking me, like, which kind do you buy? Which kind do you buy? And I sent them a link to Van Man. So they just ordered some. Fantastic. I really love it. I use it every day after I shave. Really a big fan of these guys. And your body actually recognizes it. Once you try it, you're going to feel the difference. Your skin will be softer, smoother than anything you've gotten from a bottle full of chemicals and fillers. So try them today. Ready to ditch the corporate chemicals? Give them a try. Go to vanman.shop/redacted news and use the code redacted news for 15% off your first order. That's vanman.shop/redacted news and use the code redacted news for 15% off your first order. Van Man, real ingredients, no exceptions. All right, we're back with Brandon Weichert to talk more about this idea of boots on the ground. I want to go back to something you said earlier and talking about Israel possibly using a nuclear weapon and American boots on the ground. So the goal, Natalie was asking, like, what is the goal with 5,000 U.S. Marines landing on one of these three hotspots in this region, and what would the naval support look like? I mean, we hear about the USS Gerald Ford, which may have been internally sabotaged and is now out of commission for at least 14 months. Iran says they struck it. What do we know about American aircraft carrier power and naval power in the region? What is your reporting and sourcing telling you?
Well, I've been a critic of the aircraft carrier for about a decade now. I think it's an obsolete platform. I think it's a boondoggle. And I think that the only reason we're building these things is because Congress is wanting the jobs in their districts. And, you know, this is the old, Potomac two-step going on here. This is not for strategic reasons. We live in an age of drones and an age of undersea warfare. So we should have more submarines and more drones for the Navy and less of these big, simple targets, like the aircraft carrier present. So ultimately, that's where I'm coming from. And ultimately, it looks like all the criticisms that I've had of the aircraft carrier are coming true. The USS Ford is probably the most advanced carrier in the world. It's certainly the largest. $13 billion to build. It went way over budget and way over time. And ultimately, it's the new class of carrier that's going to replace the storied Nimitz class carrier. And I think we've got 2 more in the hopper coming out soon. The JFK is the next one that's going to replace the Nimitz. Ultimately, the Ford, I think, was probably clipped by an Iranian anti-ship ballistic missile. It's hard to sink a carrier, but it's easy to disable the flight deck. If you can disable the flight deck, the carrier is basically combat ineffective. They can't launch, they can't recover aircraft, they've got to go to port. And I think that's my personal opinion is what happened. I don't have evidence of this. As far as we know, it was a laundry fire. And possibly there might have been a sabotage attempt. We know that there's rumors of that going on with the sewage system when the ship first arrived. And we certainly know there's planned mass retirements and resignations from the Navy, from that ship once they get into port, because the crew is very upset. They've been deployed for over almost 300 days, which is far beyond what they're supposed to be deployed for. So my point here is that the carrier is a wasting asset, and we've just sent it back to the shipyard. There's one shipyard in Virginia that can do these carrier overhauls for the whole country. It's backlogged currently, and so they say 14 months. I think it's going to be closer to 24 to 26 months at best. So we're going to be down a carrier, which is why they're keeping the Nimitz launchable, because basically it was put back into port to be decommissioned this year. It was supposed to be decommissioned this month. But they're keeping it combat ready for a year because they're so worried about the way the carriers are being expended, and they're burning through a lot of stuff, and they're sitting targets, they're sitting ducks for these ASBM systems that the Iranians, the Chinese, the Russians, and the North Koreans all have in abundance.
Wow. Now, you mentioned on X that you don't think that these negotiation claims are serious, no matter what Jared Kushner goes and does, no matter what plane he gets on. You think that there are 3 possible target landings, which you mentioned, Karg Island, Keshem, and Konarak. And so are we really saying that U.S. Marines would submerge from undersea or some kind of boats and be mowed down like the opening of D-Day, like the
it would
Spielberg
be more
movie?
Like Gallipoli. It would be more like Gallipoli in World War I, where the British Churchill, who was the Lord of the Admiralty at that time, younger Churchill, had this idea: we have to punch open this. It's actually very similar to what's going on now. They had to punch open the Turkish Straits going into the Black Sea. Gallipoli was the town or the port right on that location. If you can land Marines and you can hold that location, you have control. You have sea control. You can basically reopen the straits, get resupply to their allies in inside of Europe, deeper in Europe, in the eastern part of Europe, and basically that was the plan. And the British and New Zealand and Australian forces managed to kind of get on the beach, but they were completely repulsed by entrenched defenders. And I think something similar will happen here. I don't know if it'll look like D-Day. It would probably look like something from a science fiction where you have Marines and armor vehicles waiting ashore, receiving fire, yes, but ultimately getting ashore and then suddenly being swarmed by thousands and thousands of Shahed-style drones and from missiles and possibly even hypersonic weapons that we don't have defenses against.
And then I'm just trying to picture this because I think there should be a major uprising if we let this happen in our country.
I really believe that we are teetering on possibly a revolution and a political revolution in this country.
Yeah, say more about that, because I will fucking freak if this happens. And you can tell I'm upset about it. So, I mean, do you think the Iranians these people would surrender, or is it really like limbs flying, like Saving Private Ryan?
No, I think what would happen is, and this is a terrible thing to talk about because I work occasionally with the military as a consultant, so I don't say this with any joy. I want our guys to win and be safe, but ultimately, they're being led into a very bad place by really bad leadership right now. And I say this as a 3-time Trump supporter as well. I don't understand understand what's going on here. It doesn't make any sense. But if he does this, what will happen is probably a replay of Gallipoli, where they will land, they will take heavy casualties, they will retreat. The ships will then be brought to a farther range, because I'm sure as those landings are occurring, Iranian ASBM systems will be being used against whatever ships are deploying the Marines close to probably the amphibious lander, close to whatever target they're whatever one of those three locations they're trying to land at. So it would probably be a strategic withdrawal. That can't be covered up indefinitely. I know they're covering up a lot of things about this war, and they're slow walking the casualty rates, but ultimately, at least I think they are, but ultimately, this can't be covered up, something that big. And what would happen is at that point you would see a pivot in the world system, because the whole world would then realize the American military juggernaut doesn't work anymore. We're no longer the biggest, baddest dog in the neighborhood, and then from there would probably also be an economic assault on it. We're already seeing that happen with the Strait of Hormuz closure. You're already seeing now China. We went to war supposedly to hurt China. Well, China's the only country right now getting Iranian oil and getting it below market value, and they're moving it on ships through the Strait of Hormuz, and they're being paid in yuan. And now the Indians and Japanese are doing the same thing. They're being given safe passage by the Iranians through the Strait of Hormuz, and as long as they pay transit fees in yuan, the Chinese currency. So you're already seeing the geoeconomic assault occurring. If you pair that with the potentiality of a complete rout of an American land force being rebuffed the way that the British were rebuffed by the Turks at Gallipoli 100 years ago, I think you would see basically the end of the American economic and military system as we know it today. It would be a true new world order coming online, with the United States not in a very good position at that sort of strategic level.
And of course, this is the plan, right? I mean, this is the plan. This is the plan that the globalists want, and of course, this is exactly what Israel wants. I mean, I think at the end of the day, the point has been made very well by a number of great thinkers over the past few weeks that this is part of the plan, that the United States is really the governor to Israel. Like, if you want to have the Greater Israel Project fully realized in the region, you need the United States out of the way. And what better way to get the United States out of the way than to completely economically ruin our country through some sort of massive economic
and then that gets us
boondoggle.
into the nuclear prospect, because the Israelis I've spoken to, and I have a lot of contacts in Israel. I used to have a lot of contacts in Israel. The Israelis I've spoken to believe that the U.S. will try to land troops and it will fail. And at that point is when they're talking about, well, we're going to need to introduce nuclear weapons because the Americans aren't going to go to that next level. They don't have it in them. Trump's already looking, talking like he's getting, cold feet. So this is how they're going to keep us engaged, is they're going to do something with nukes. And that's where this leads, I think. And I think the idea, as you note, is to flatten all of their potential rivals. I mean, they're already starting to pick fights with NATO member Turkey. You're going to see they're going to try to flatten all of their Arab and Iranian rivals as a means to allow for chaos to reign around their border, thinking that will then allow them to create hegemony. But I really got to tell you, I think if this keeps going, I think that you're also going to witness the collapse of Israel. This is a very dangerous moment for them. There's plenty of Israelis who know what I'm talking about. This is not a good spot. And I keep hoping that those IDF generals and those Israelis who are opposed to Netanyahu summon the courage to start telling him no. But so far, they have not. And that's the problem here, because the temple is being taken down around their heads in real time by their own leader, who is not restrained by anyone, including the United States. And the Israelis do not have the juice, the power to actually accomplish these very ambitious goals. So you're witnessing not only the destruction of American military power in the region and the destruction of America's economic hegemony for forever, but you're also witnessing the self-destruction of Israel as a nation state. And that's, tragic within itself, in my opinion. And so I hope that they can avoid this and they actually start listening to reason. But so far, I don't see anything indicating that.
Now, what are the pieces that would fall if Israel does use a nuclear weapon on Iran? Iran has said Pakistan will retaliate on their behalf. We don't know if that's true or not. What do you think of that? And what would be the fallout for Israel as well?
Well, I don't know if Pakistan would. I think that's a lot of bluster, because you have to understand, it was 8 months ago, 12 months ago, Pakistan and Iran were at war with each other. Also, Pakistan is basically a partner with Saudi Arabia, and the Pakistanis do not. I don't think they would. I don't think the Pakistanis would go to nuclear war with Israel. Maybe, but I don't think they would. I think that's a very low probability. What is more probable is whatever nuclear, and we know Iran was developing nukes. This is, I'm not naive, and I've got a whole book out talking about the actual threat Iran posed. And so there's no doubt that Iran has the capability to build rudimentary nuclear devices, whether a dirty bomb or low yield system, whatever. They've had that capability for a while now. And it seems to me, as I noted earlier, contrary to what we all thought, the Iranians are not crazy. They have been very, very responsible in the escalation. Like I said, they counterpunch. They don't escalate on their own. They only do the exact same thing that we do when we first do it. Then they retaliate. So if a nuclear weapon or device were used by Israel after an American landing failed, I could foresee Hezbollah or Hamas having access to some dirty bomb material and saying, okay, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. This is our Samson option. We're going to blow up Tel Aviv and Jerusalem or Haifa or, whatever. But this is where it's headed. And it's, Herman Kahn once referred to this sort of thing as an insensate wargasm. And I think that's exactly what we're witnessing here. The escalation ladder always leads to insensate wargasm in which both parties destroy each other with nukes.
Yeah, I mean, here, let's put this up. Here is the escalation ladder.
There you go.
Diplomatic pressure, economic sanctions, covert operations. We saw all of these things unfolding. Remember the Starlink, CIA operations, Mossad operations in Iran, limited military action, 12-day war, right? Regional conflict, then you have full-scale war. And then that's where you go, is to a nuclear war, unless, cooler heads can prevail.
And you could make the case, and I have in other shows, I think I did on Tucker's show too, they're calling this a regional war, and that's fine. I think this is World War III because it's already roped in the great powers from outside the region, right? I mean, you see not only is China and Russia having a lot of influence over Iran, but you have also Britain is now, and they were opposed to this, interestingly enough. Britain is being dragged in against their will. They have these defense agreements with places like Qatar. So F-35Bs belonging to Britain are being used in a copious air defense role. They're staying in Qatari airspace, but they're shooting down doing their best to shoot down incoming Iranian missiles and drones. You see the French now are getting involved. They lost their only naval base in the region, and they are now deploying the aging Charles de Gaulle aircraft carrier. You're seeing the world now becoming ensnared, not just economically, but actually militarily as well. There's also, by the way, a possibility here. It's not being well spoken about. The Houthis in Yemen have kept their powder dry. I think that's purposeful. They're an extension of Iranian power, after all, but they haven't really done much this time around to help the Iranians. And I think that's because the Iranians are keeping them in reserve. If this thing really goes south, the Iranians could use the Houthis to blockade the only avenue right now through which oil is getting out of the region, and that's the Red Sea. When they did it 2 years ago, and we lost to them. Remember, the Trump administration, or a year ago, Trump administration pulled out and didn't look back rather than risk the aircraft carriers. This could spread not only to that part of the Middle East, but this could spread to the Horn of Africa, which is right across from Yemen, where the Red Sea begins to, have the gates of the Red Sea. That's because the Ethiopians are aligned with the U.S., the UAE, and the Israelis, and they've been making burblings recently that they're interested in possibly sending their troops to neighboring Eritrea to take operational control over the coastline of Eritrea so that the Americans and Israelis can establish land-based missiles in the Eritrean coastline to begin targeting the Houthis more thoroughly because our Navy ships can't get close enough without risking themselves. So you have this thing, we're probably weeks away from this thing really ripping open into a real nightmare that we're not going to be able to get out of.
Brandon, I know you got to run. I want to get you out of here on a timely fashion, but I just want to play this video. Iran released, so they've been releasing some video memes. You know how CENTCOM has been releasing some memes making fun of, whatever on the American side. Well, Iran has now released a video. They say this is the best way for us to explain to Trump what's happening. And we're releasing this cartoon. I removed the Batman music that was associated with this for copyright purposes, but you can see here Iran is explaining what's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
We can just talk over this. Already happening. Yeah. We're well past this stage, which is oil prices going up, going up, going up. He's stopped the flow. Iran has stopped the flow. And if they try to make it through, they're going to be hit with Iranian drones or other strikes. President Trump then gets mad. Here comes the USS Abraham Lincoln. Yeah. And, you explain what we're seeing here.
Yeah, well, first of all, the Navy has already told Trump, and I'm surprised because it sounds almost like he was giving an order. But the Navy has already told Trump we're not sending any large ships through the strait. It's not happening. So that should tell you how badly boxed out the Navy is. The Navy is $30 million a day. I just looked it up before I came on with you. The operations for the Navy alone in the Strait of, or in the region, is costing us $30 million per day for every U.S. taxpayer. So we're spending $30 million a day, and the Navy still won't get near the Strait of Hormuz, which obviously that thing being stopped up is causing all the economic problems here, and we're just at the start of this thing. So the Iranians they have figured out Trump, they have figured out the Americans, they've figured out the Israelis, and they really did, and I hate to say this, but they really did develop a comprehensive strategy that married ends, ways, and means masterfully together, and they can keep doing this probably for the next, I was told, contrary to what the U.S. intelligence community is being told by the Israelis, because that's really how this is working. We're not even getting intelligence our own. It's all coming from Israel, which is all basically inaccurate and it's lies. But basically, I was told that the Iranians likely have a minimum of 18 to 24 months worth remaining of missiles and drones and hypersonic weapons. So all this talk about we've done 8,000 sorties, and you got Pollyanna Pete up there, talking about how great everything is, and it's like, well, okay, we ran we ran 5.39 million sorties the Air Force did in the Vietnam War, and we still lost the Vietnam War. So I hate to break it to Pollyanna Pete and the Trump administration, but that's not how you win wars. You don't win wars with air power alone. It never happens. And whenever we try it, we end up getting burned royally, and we get stuck in an escalation trap. This time, the escalation trap does have nukes. Afghanistan, Iraq, even Vietnam never had that. Not really. Now we've got it, and it ain't looking good.
No.
It's our allies that have it, and we can't stop them from using our allies. Yeah. And what is so frustrating is you're saying that the intelligence we're getting from Israel is bad. It leads us in a certain direction.
It's cooked. It's just like Ukraine. They're
if
cooking the
you
intelligence.
know this, why doesn't leadership know this? Why do they use it in any capacity?
Maybe it's the bubble you were talking about.
It's the bubble. And if you read Joe Kent's resignation letter, he explicitly talks about the echo chamber that your former colleague, Mark Levin, has helped to create for the president. And, I don't know how anybody listens to him. This guy sounds, he's screechy voice and all of that. But, that's who the president decides to listen to. Ultimately, the intelligence community, the people that I know who are retired intelligence operatives, Michael Scheuer of the CIA, Sam Faddis, Joe Kent now, former intelligence people are very upfront and open with you regardless of their political persuasion that, Israel kind of runs us around. But ultimately, and I think everybody currently in the intelligence community is aware of that keenly, but ultimately they don't make the decisions. It's the political appointees. And my understanding is there has been, since the beginning of the Trump administration's second term, a direct line from Netanyahu's office to John Ratcliffe's office on the 7th floor of Langley. And he basically end runs all the time. The very careful vetting process that we have across 18 different intelligence agencies in the United States, that process is routinely end run by the Israelis Israelis because they have these political connections, notably with the Republican side, where they're dumping this just really unprofessional, information that hasn't been properly vetted, is very often made up or partly made up, and they're handing it to their political allies on the political side, the decision-making side of the administration, and then that gets piped up into the White House, and the president, who's already supercharged by Mark Levin and Ben Shapiro, he's not listening to the generals. He's not listening to the intel people because he doesn't think he can trust them. And that's also the Israeli position. The Israeli position has always been, going back decades now, the Americans underestimate their own power. So what we have to do is we have to goose the Americans. We have to gin up the leadership, use our leverage over them to force them into a situation where they would basically do regime change for us against a target, in this case, Iran. Even though the Americans don't want to do it, even though the Americans don't think they can do it, and it turns out we can't, the Americans don't know their own power. We're just going to help push them over the edge, and once they fall, they'll have to fly. Otherwise, everything falls apart. That's the mentality in Israel, and you're seeing that play out here, and you're finding out the real limits of American power in a tripolar age that is trending toward multipolarity every day.
You know what? And then it's our business that will let these people like Lindsey Graham and Ted Cruz get this bad intel and put them on the air. And they never stop to think, why are they saying this? Where do they get this? And
right.
CNN will just be like, okay, come on the air and say that. We don't give a shit where you got it from.
I've been disinvited from multiple, since appearing on Tucker, obviously that was a big boost for me. And I got invited to a lot of shows almost immediately. And then it was like within 48 hours, half of them were canceling, me. And I don't think what I'm saying is that radical. But it goes against the preferred narrative. So, I mean, it's been very interesting to see. I want to give a shout out to actually Caitlin Collins, who I think she's actually done a pretty good job of asking tough questions about this issue to the administration. I know, she gets a lot of flack, and I think rightly so, along with CNN. But there are a handful of people in these corporate press organs where they still are kind of asking tough questions, but you can tell it's through gritted teeth. You can tell that the executives who run these companies do not want to challenge Trump, not because they like Trump, but because they happen to agree with this policy because the people who back them want this policy.
Yes.
So you have this weird feedback where clearly CNN, MS Now, or is that where the MS, whatever they're calling themselves
right
now, clearly any other issue, they would be attacking full bore Trump. But even Rachel Maddow last week is making these weird monologues defending the war.
Yeah.
Rachel Maddow. It's like, what are you doing? It's because clearly there's incentive behind the scenes to carry a certain narrative.
Oh, for sure. And the money, just follow the money in all of this. Someone posted to me, he said, Clayton, the difficult thing about a 4-day war, because they told us it would be 4 days, the difficult thing about a 4-day war is that it lasts 5 years.
Yeah.
And I think that,
heard a variation of that from a veteran who said the worst part about a 2-week war are the first 20 years.
God. Oh, man. I hope not. From your mouth to God's ears, I hope not another Afghanistan. Brandon, thank you so much for this. We really appreciate
Let's
you.
do this again.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Would love to have you. Where can people find your show?
Well, you can find me right now on Rumble, NatSec Talk. You can find the NatSec guy also on Emerald.tv, where I occasionally write some incisive thoughts. And then also 1945.com. I'm one of many experts from across the spectrum. It's a really great publication. We get everybody from me to Michael Rubin, so it's a very fair and balanced publication. And then on Twitter, at We the Brandon is my handle. And check out my books also. I've got 4 of them on Amazon or wherever books are sold.
Thank you so much.
Brandon, great to see you. Thank you so much for your insights on all of this. Thank you so much, Brandon. We'll see you real soon. It's been so hard to get accurate information from this war, what's actually happening, because the propaganda fog machine is so strong right now. So to be able to have someone who's plugged in with great sourcing on this from the military side, from the national security side, someone who formerly worked on the Hill, it's great information. So we really
fantastic.
appreciate it.
All right.
All right. We've got more. I want to take your super chats here and take some of your commentary. So get in any super chats you have. We'll have a conversation here in a second. But first, I don't know if you saw what happened with gold prices over the past 24 hours, and silver prices. They totally tanked, dropped down to about $4,100 an ounce for gold. That was pretty terrible. And of course, then what happened right after President Trump came out and made his 7 a.m. announcement? Then boom, things went back up again, hundreds of dollars. So up and down, up and down. There's a lot of volatility right now, of course, because people are really worried. What's going to happen with the U.S. dollar? What's going to happen with the broader economic conditions? And we're big advocates of investing in precious metals around here on this show. We think that that's something that has sustained for thousands of years. Gold and silver, they absolutely have. And so our friends at Lear Capital can help you do that. They can help you. They're an education company first. And if you want to get on the phone with them, they're an American company. Just get on the phone with them and have a conversation. Okay. So I'm a big believer in tangible assets, gold, silver, and real estate. That's what I've done my whole life. And that's what I'm a big believer in my family, making sure that my kids are protected, because I think, and I've heard it said very, very well by Professor Yang, he's one of the pieces that he says that I think is very, very important is that they are going to try to take away wealth. They're going to try to basically crush the American economy. And when they do that, of course, what's going to happen to people's normal savings vehicles, right? Like treasury bonds and all of that, it's going to be destroyed in many ways. So that's why, again, tangible assets. Every government currency in world history has collapsed. We have seen that. Why would the US dollar be any different? I don't believe that it's going to be any different. Every government currency in world history, every fiat currency has collapsed. And I think we are watching a controlled demolition of that right now. However they want to control us, whether through some sort of a CBDC, it's all coming. We're seeing that unfolding right before our eyes. You're seeing oil transactions being settled in the Chinese yuan. So again, gold and silver as a way to act as a hedge against this craziness. It has sustained for 4,000 to 5,000 years. And if you want to have gold coins sent right to your house, store them in your gun safe. If you've got some savings sitting in US dollars, maybe you want to think about transferring that over into gold and silver. It's totally up to you. But anyway, just have a conversation with them. There's no pressure at all. They're an American company. They'll just talk with you. They'll send you a free gold kit in the mail where you can sit down with your spouse, loved one, partner, whatever, and go over it and make a decision for yourself. Again, I started investing in gold back when it was around $1,700 an ounce. I waited too long. I wish I would have done it years before that. Now it's about $4,500 an ounce. And, so again, that's great that it's going to go up in value, that gold has gone up in value. That's not why I invest in it. I invest in it for protection of my family. That's the bottom line. So go to learredacted.com, check out their website, or just give them a call, 1-800-613-3557, and request your free gold kit. They'll send it right to your house, and you can have a discussion with your family about all of that. All right, Shane in our chat room says, America lost in Vietnam. Right, and I believe in many ways we are heading for another Vietnam. I think we could be heading in that direction. Dem Fuerte says, invest in solar panels. I did. Again, what you're seeing with the energy prices right now. So, David, you're in Thailand. How are things looking from the petrol perspective? Because they've declared a state of emergency there for gas, right? So they don't want you filling up.
Yeah, they're basically limiting everybody to 1,000 Thai baht, which is roughly $30 some worth of gas. And then there was huge runs too. Like when I went past some of the gas stations, there were lines like hours long. People were panicking, but it seems to have died down a little bit, the panic. I think the limits are helping, but I don't know if they got more oil or what, but when it first happened, they said they had 2 months worth of oil reserves was all. So,
jeez. Well, look at Australia, Philip. Do we have that video? So this was from this morning in Australia. Gasoline. They're putting signs now on the gas pumps that were out. They're hanging these stickers on there. Fuel is drying up there along the Gold Coast. Sorry, this hose not in use. Just they don't have gas right now. And this is Australia, which of course relies on 90% imports for their gas. There, this is happening across Southeast Asia, of course, Vietnam. You're seeing this, yes, you're seeing this, of course, in Thailand, but it's coming. I'd love to know in the chat room. Let me know. Type out what are the gas prices in your neck of the woods. and let me know wwhere you are. So I think about 60% of our audience watches here in the United States. About 60% of our audience, I think, 65, 70% or so of our audience is United States based. We have a lot in Canada, the UK, and around the world, but we a lot of people watch us in areas that are blocked and banned. I know a lot of people write to us. They watch us in Russia, even though we're banned or we're blocked because, YouTube is blocked there, I guess. But yeah, let us know how much you guys are paying for gasoline. Let's see. I need to talk to, $5 super chat from Lawrence says, you need to talk to geologist Sean Wilsley about Mount Etna. Okay. Thank you so much, Lawrence. It's not popping up on the screen. Do you know why? Active Guardian.
I think Philip, do you have 6 activated?
Is there something I have to do to get them on the screen?
Sorry, what do I do? Oh, the chat went away. Sorry. It was because of the B-roll. My bad.
Oh, Benjamin Netanyahu's best option is to fake his own death in a false flag attack, then retire to Argentina with all the other Nazis to be served by the Shabos Goys. Yeah, I mean, when you think about all of the Nazis that wound up in like Misiones, Argentina, and where Hitler wound up in Argentina after the war and lived out his days into the 60s, 1960s. $2 super chat from Pops. Thank you so much. I'm not going to put that on the screen, but Encrypt says this. Damn, realizing a lot of this viewership isn't even from America. Like, what the F y'all don't even play to an American audience? I don't know why you would say that. I think most of our audience is American. I think if we look at the analytics, it's mostly overwhelming American. So let's see here. Georgia, let's see. Palm Springs. Is that normal? Palm Springs, $5. Man, I'm trying to click on these. It's going to be impossible. Mary Lewis says $5.80 gallon here in Bay Area, California. West Texas, $4.77 for diesel. I just filled up yesterday in Arizona when I was there for the weekend, and I used a little bit in the rental car. I mean, almost nothing. Just had to top it off before I returned the car at the airport. It was like $15. And I got, trust me, as a rental car, I'm not putting premium in that, $3.89 in Chapel Hill, $3.20 in South Dakota. Yeah, I guess, but this is, we'll see. This is maybe the calm before the storm here. Releasing all the strategic oil reserves. So we'll see. $3.99 unleaded in Southern Ohio. Unleaded $4.99 diesel. And thank you, Laura. So you were seeing lines for like hours in Thailand.
Yeah, it was crazy. Unfortunately, I didn't need gas. Because I wasn't going to wait in that line. I'd walk. But there's still propane powered tuk-tuks, propane powered grab cars, electric cars, a lot of electric cars over here for like Grab is Thailand's version of Uber.
My home city of Reading, Pennsylvania in the house. Angie Elise D says $4 for gas in Reading, PA. Yeah, I went to Wilson High School in Reading, Pennsylvania, or outside of Reading, but let's see, Oregon diesel $5.69 and $4.79 for gasoline there. Philip, what about you? You're up in Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, it's closed. It's closing in on 5. I got gas a couple days ago. I guess it was over 5, but I used my Safeway rewards card to knock 40 cents off. But yeah, it's over 5 here.
Sarah Leah in $3.40 in Montana. Mr. Tiny Tiger $4.69 in Phoenix. $5.49 in Florida for diesel. Has 3 cars, rents 1, complains about gas. I don't know who that is. I don't have 3 cars, and I don't rent any of them. I don't have 3 cars. Pure BS. Cal gets taxed so much. Yeah, that's true. 680, a certain part of Anthony says in 680 in California. 359 in Texas. Yeah. That's quite a bit. That's quite a bit. So I think we're, so I made the point, and I want to kind of go back to it, that this is part of a larger plan, I think, which is to destabilize the United States on purpose. And when you see like this large, I'm trying to, like I said this weekend in a video, I'm trying to see things through this bigger lens and maybe sort of influenced by our friend David Icke. But when you understand that if this is part of a broader plan and it's been in the works for many, many decades, which is to destabilize the United States, is to destabilize these global powers and to create sort of a one world government where it's AI control, you control the monetary system, they control over all of us, then war is the great destabilizer. So using the war in Iran as a great destabilizer in order to usher in these new security and surveillance protocols and AI control of all of us. And I think that's absolutely happening. Just look what's happening with the TSA. Even if you're flying this weekend, you'll notice that they're really trying to push you towards a digital transfer through the airport. TSA issues, it's a lot of big problems here. Rather than waiting hours and hours and hours in a line, just go through this biometric scanning facility and use and pay a little bit extra and have your information uploaded to a database and submit it to the TSA. And you know what? You'll be able to move through pretty quickly. So by creating great, and they'll always couch it as convenience. That's the idea, that it'll make your life easier. It'll make your life absolutely easier in order to move towards this digital future. So your real ID, your central bank digital currency. We're not using cash anymore. Claudia Sheinbaum in Mexico this week announcing that for a number of government-based transactions, toll roads and otherwise, no more cash. They've already done this in Europe. Europe is, they really don't want you using euros. They've really moved to a digital euro. And of course, as the ECB has pointed out in Europe, transacting a certain amount of money over a certain dollar threshold, of course, puts you on the gray market, as they've said, meaning the terrorist gray market. Oh, you want to pay your gardener or something €500, or you want the pool person who's fixing the pool or whatever. It doesn't matter what it is. You want to transact in cash? Sorry, not going to happen. If you do so, then you're considered on the gray market. And we need to watch you. We need to surveil you because terrorism happens with cash. Okay. That's the concern. It's terrorism. And that's how they spin it. So it's all about control. And of course, the rise of 15-minute cities. But again, war is the great destabilizer. It's the great equalizer. It's the great pressure point, like in the Patriot Act after 9/11. Use these false flags in order to drive us into a surveillance state, to be watched, monitored, give up our freedoms, give up our liberties. And by the way, do it willingly. That's what we did during COVID. And if you see COVID is really the trial run in all of this, which is, I think, pretty apparent. How far can they push us into a lockdown? You're seeing in parts of Southeast Asia already, don't come to work, stay home and work 4 hours, 4 days a week. Because we can't have you on the roads. We don't need you coming into the cities. So just stay home. We're already seeing that across Southeast Asia. And gas emergencies. And so, of course, they would love nothing more for us to not have combustion engines anyway, move us all to an EV digital future. And then when you learn that Palantir, and according to military sources this weekend, were used in thousands of targets in Iran using AI to hit thousands of targets. And the Pentagon saw that in action and said, let's just go full bore with it. Palantir behind it. You see where this is going. So this idea that this is like new, it's not. It's been, in the works for many, many decades. Now, is the Iran war the main piece of this, or is it all, is this just one big catalyst? We saw much of this being rolled out already in Ukraine. For instance, the digital app called the DIA app. We've done reports down here on the show about that. Our friend of the show and journalist Dan Cohen covering that, which is to get everyone moved to this application inside of Ukraine and doing it under the auspices of security and making sure that we have digital currency that we can just put right inside of your DIA app inside of Ukraine. Susan Power, those from USAID, and all of those other individuals who are involved in that rollout inside of Ukraine, where you can snoop and snitch on your neighbor right inside the app. Click on a button and tell on your neighbor, and the SBU shows up at their house. Oh, this person must be a Putin apologist or sympathizer. You can You can snitch right inside the app to the SBU, the secret security force inside of Ukraine. So, just look what they're doing in Gaza right now and the plans that Jared Kushner has, of course, to rebuild Gaza with a massive surveillance state, biometrics, which we've featured here. David Petraeus actively involved in these new condominium complexes they'll be building in Gaza, using this technology to track everyone. Oh, these homes will be like you're living in Boca Raton, he said. Those were his words. But you'll be under mass surveillance the entire time. So any Palestinians who are still alive after the Nakba 2.0 and the genocide, they'll just be under constant surveillance using this new technology. All into a database, all being tracked. So, I don't know. To me, one of the big variables in this entire situation, and we didn't talk about it with Brandon, but it is Russia, and it is Vladimir Putin, and it is Russia's involvement in this, and what pushback they'll have against the idea of nuclear weapons. Colonel Douglas McGregor the other day in an interview saying he believes that Putin has already warned Netanyahu that if you use a nuclear weapon on Iran, we will use a nuclear weapon on you. So where does this spiral from there in this world war that we're already in? Maui Gal says, ask about Israel planting dynamite under the Dome of the Rock and then blame it on Iranian bombs. Yeah. Well, of course. I mean, that's going to be the next big piece of this, right? The religious war piece of this and destroying the Dome of the Rock. MC Solid says, Clayton, do you know how to skateboard? No. I do not. I used to.
But you make a mean bagel, though.
What does that have to do with skateboards? I can make bagels.
Nothing.
I know how to skateboard. I can't do it, but I understand how to do it. So yes, I know how. I just can't.
I've done it. I built my own skateboard back in the day. But I went down a steep hill one time, and then my trucks were overly either too tight or whatever, and it threw me off. It was threw me off the steep hill, and my whole leg was just like ripped to shreds, like pieces of gravel in there and everything else. It was the 1980s.
You remember those old plastic skateboards that were like pointy at the end and had those shitty wheels on them that we had when we were kids?
Yeah. Thanks for all you guys do. Love the show. Thank you so much, M. Jules Lee. $15 gas in Las Vegas? No way. Is that right, Kaya? No way. $6.50 in Sacramento.
Damn.
Wow. No one ever mentions the Vatican Bank. Someone said in our chat. That's a good point. Stop it with your lies.
Richest city in the world. Smallest city in the world, richest city in the world.
Yeah. Kia speaks the truth. It says, yeah, it's $5.15 for unleaded in Las Vegas. Yet a majority of Israelis are secular, Jack says. Yes, Linz wants to know, we lived in Portugal for 5 years. they don't have any. And I'm from Philadelphia area, so grew up with like good New Jersey bagels nearby and loved them. So when I lived in Portugal for 5 years, I was like, they don't have any bagels here. They're garbage. They don't have anything. I got to make them. So I learned how to make them. So I learned how to make everything bagels. It takes like 2 days to make good ones. So kids love them. They're a ton of work. But yeah. Has their priorities on track, don't they? We do. We do have our priorities on track. America first and bagels second. That's where we go. Folks be lying. Oh, a lot of folks be lying for sure. There's a lot of folks be lying. Oh boy, just got our doggy back. Just got Grover back from, had him in the doggy daycare over the weekend, and miss the guy. Anytime he's away, I miss the guy. That's the thing, though. You get him like to a kennel or to like a doggy daycare park, or he's out in the mountains playing with other dogs, and there might be something going on there. He's rubbing his paws, licking his paws, shaking his head, eating grass, itchy ears, stuff like that. So allergies in dogs flare up when bad bacteria takes over the gut, because 90% of your dog's immune system lives in the gut. And just like humans, dogs need probiotics or good bacteria. And that's why we use Better Wild and their allergy relief soft chews. These guys are fantastic. A supplement designed to support your pet's allergy defense systems by strengthening their digestion. They're the first and only chews with Ancestral Advantage Wolf probiotics derived from your dog's mighty ancestor, the wolf, that helps restore a healthy balance of good bacteria in your gut. They have a premium blend of wolf probiotics called the Ancestral Advantage, designed to rewild your dog's gut. That's right. And they also have a postbiotic in there too. But it's been clinically proven to reduce itchiness. It's derived from kimchi. We talk all about kimchi on this show. Even great for your dogs. It's been clinically proven to reduce itchiness and redness in just 2 months with daily use in your pup. Plus, it has colostrum to boost immune function and fight inflammation. All of that in Better Wild. Better Wild is committed to helping your dogs with science-backed, veterinary-approved solutions so you can feel great about. And right now, Better Wild is offering our listeners up to 40% off your entire order at betterwild.com/redacted. Get 40% off your order. betterwild.com/redacted. Missed my dog. Missed my doggy. That's right. So what do you guys want to talk about? Anything else you guys want to talk about? Anything that we missed here, and any questions you have, let us know in the comments. And again, I think this whole delay, this 5-day delay by President Trump, it's clearly a ploy to get U.S. Marines in position. So we'll have a 5-day delay. We're negotiating with the Iranians, and then we'll do what we've done to them in the past round of negotiations. We'll sneak attack them and blow them up. And that's exactly what we'll try to do.
Did you see that link I just shared in the water cooler from Netanyahu saying he doesn't care what Trump said? He's going to bomb the scientists and all that jazz.
He's saying that in English? Of course not. Let's see here. He will continue. Yeah. Let's see if this is working here. There we go. Netanyahu goes completely psychotic and says he will continue attacking Iran despite a conversation with President Trump about achieving peace. Netanyahu says he will bomb both Iran and Lebanon and target their scientists to ensure they are never a threat again. We will safeguard our vital interests in any agreement. So whatever you guys want to do, we don't care. We will bomb them. That's why President Trump, in his announcement, didn't want to name the name of the person they're negotiating with. He's like, because I don't want him to be killed. Who's going to kill him? This guy, this psychopath.
And I wonder if that's really Netanyahu or if that's AI Netanyahu.
AI Netanyahu is my favorite, for sure. But yeah, this is spiraling out of control. Hey, tomorrow on the show, very excited. We'll have Professor Jiang on the show. Of course, he has been spot on in his game theory predictions about President Trump winning the presidency, then also going to war with Iran. His third prediction seems to be coming true, which is that the United States will lose the war against Iran as this thing spirals out of control. So we'll speak to the professor tomorrow here on the show. Hey, we have a store we should tell you about, our Redacted store. We've updated some interesting things on the storefront. If you go to redactedstore.com, we've got some great t-shirts, hoodies, mugs, stickers, everything there to support what we do here and support independent journalism. We don't mark the prices up. I mean, the printing costs, we try to keep them pretty much in line with the printing costs. So what you see is, what you're getting there, you're paying for. You're not getting any kind of huge markup. It's just a way to support what we do here and show your love. Hey, you got Mother's Day coming up. You got Father's Day coming up. Maybe grab them a redacted hoodie or t-shirt. It's getting hot out there. It's already getting hot. 108 degrees, 112 degrees in the desert Southwest over the past few days. Like, what is going on? I was talking to Dane Wigington the other day, and he was saying, Clayton, I've never seen it. Been tracking this stuff for years. I've never seen it. So redactedstore.com. Go there. Check out the different wares we have and support our show. Some t-shirts because it's getting super hot out there. Like our Conspiracy Knower t-shirt. All right, everyone. Thank you guys so much for joining us here today. Natalie had to duck out and run to the... we have no bus this week. They do this like a bus off week. It's so weird. Like once a month. It's super annoying. Or once every 2 months, I guess. I don't know. So she's got to run and pick up the kids from school. So thank you guys for joining us here on this Monday. We will be back tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Thank you guys so much for subscribing, and have a great night, everyone.